Today, we wanted to talk a little bit about helping your office with some shared ideas to improve your payment process. I know we've met many of you at the MDA annual sessions. We have been the preferred company to use when you have a slow pay, unpaid, or problem payment account. And Ron and I are your two contact people here in Michigan. We do have over 8 representatives in Michigan, and we are also the nation's largest full-service debt collection agency. Here are the topics we'll be going over today, and we'd like you to notice that a lot of the conversation we're going to have today, or that Ron and I are glad to assist with, is really intended to help you improve your internal process, help you get your payments in timely before you have to use some of the services that we offer. And of the 3 programs that we do provide, 2 of them are intended to be used before you even consider using any of our over 300 licensed debt collectors. So here's the topics we're going to discuss today. And we know, unfortunately, we're dealing with a rough economy. And I think many of you would agree that, every day your patients are trying to make a decision, what they pay now. Are they paying their utility bill? Are they buying something on Amazon Prime? Or are they paying their dental statement? And what we try to do is give you some new ideas to not only help your staff from day one when you get a new patient coming in the door to dealing with older issues going back, years where there's been non-payment. Certainly, and hopefully it's improved for everybody, but we know over the last couple of years, the biggest challenge we were hearing about was staff changes. And this goes back to COVID. And obviously, every time you get new staff or you start using a new online billing program, you have to do retraining. And one of the things we really promote, and we do this at all the annual sessions when we speak, is to make sure that you're updating your office policy and making sure that everybody is aware of what your expectation is when you talk to a new patient about payment expectations, or how your billing team is dealing with a patient who, let's say, has gone over 30 days past due. Now, jokingly here, I mean, we hope that your business plan or office policy is not too complicated, but one thing I always like to promote is, have you updated your business plan for 2023, right? It's already June. And if you haven't sat down with your new staff members and talked about what your plan is in terms of profitability, or make sure that everybody in the office is on the same page of what's your office policy on expectation of payment, or what happens when there's a delayed account, who should be speaking to them, and really what should be said from day one when somebody comes in the door. So, why bother with updating your office policy? Hopefully it's in a binder, or maybe it's a series of files that new employees can see. Well, imagine, as I say, trying to build a house or plan a trip without, an agenda. And your practice is no different. Without office policy, mistakes are going to be made. And in today's, litigious world, but also Yelp world, I mean, if your office person says the wrong thing or maybe isn't following the same policy, it can turn into problems. The first item we always encourage you to take a look at, and I'd encourage you to walk out to the lobby maybe after this call today and look at that patient information form that you hand out on your clipboard, or maybe it's in a binder in the lobby, and make sure it's been updated recently. I know occasionally I've had to change dentists, and sometimes I get that patient information form and it looks like it was created about 12 years ago. And it really, there's some new things that should be on there. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But more importantly, when they read that, it should have a very clear description of what late fees or possibly interest could be added if you're looking to, make that part of your office policy. And the other one is the broken appointment fee. There's a wide range of, latitude and fees that are being charged there. And, it's something that without making sure everybody in the office is aware of that, and especially your billing team, you could get some confusion when they're talking to a patient. The other item that we talk about a lot is obviously as a younger patient starts to age, at some point they should be turned over to be the guarantor. And we're surprised sometimes when we're asked to reach out to an unpaid account and the actual patient is now 23, but they're still under the parent's initial patient form. Once they reach the correct age, they should be signing their own guarantor form. So then if we have to reach out to have a conversation about non-payment, we're not having to go through the parent. I think you're all probably picking up what I'm saying there, but it really can be important that the office is making sure that they have the right person as the guarantor, either on your paper files or in your billing program. And the last one here, when is payment expected? This is something we're going to touch again here in just a moment, but really that should be discussed from the initial phone call. When somebody's calling in and saying they like to start using the practice, who's ever answering that phone should probably allude to that. We do have an expectation for payment. We would like you to bring either a checkbook or a debit or credit card when you come in for your first appointment. And just setting that tone that payment is expected at time of service, and maybe starting to get away a little bit from always sending out as many statements. Late fees are a real mixed bag, but certainly there should be no hesitation to start adding late fees after you're sending out a second statement. And again, in today's, difficult economy, you need as much leverage as you can. We are seeing more and more practices starting to add a fee. And the example we've seen recently is they're adding a $10 to a second statement and making it clear. Now, this should also be laid out very specifically on that patient information form that you will receive a late fee on past due payments. But without some kind of impetus, people tend to, as you probably understand, the doctor and the dentist are always the last one to get paid, and you need some reason to show them that there's a penalty for late payment. The other item that more and more we are being able to use to be more successful is making sure that you're getting home phone and obviously cell phone, but also email addresses. And if you think it's appropriate, even whatever they use for their social media addresses, right? What's their Facebook account? Because there are changing laws right now where we are able to actually reach out through texting, chat, and even using some social media to get in touch with people regarding a delayed payment. So try to get as much information as you can when they're filling out that patient information form.
So
there's many things going on right now that, again, if you're not aware of it, Ron and I are glad to share what we're seeing some practices are doing. And certainly there's other vendors with MDA services who can help you with this. Automated appointment reminder technology, I'm sure everybody's familiar with that. And we certainly know, and I get something from my dental provider, a few days before I'm supposed to come for an appointment, and it absolutely improves response. As we'll share with you later in this call, we provide a reminder technology that informs a patient that they've yet to make a payment. And we call this TSI Accelerator. We also would encourage you to continue making copies of driver's licenses. I'm sure many of you are aware that at this point, we all have the opportunity to deny giving Social Security number, but we as a debt collection company do have resources where we can use driver's license number almost as efficiently as Social Security number to locate, let's say, a patient who unfortunately has decided to become non-communicative. When they go in to renew their driver's license, it actually sends us information with their new home address. And this is information that most people are not aware of, but we may encourage you to give us driver's license information using some of our technology. The other item that we continue to talk about when we speak at the MDA annual session is, are you getting credit card information at new patient setups? And again, there's a number of systems out there. They might be called tokenization, where you can get a credit card number, put it into a program where nobody in the office can see it. It comes up as kind of a unique code. But if they agree to let you run their credit card after each office visit, which is getting to be more and more typical, it certainly reduces the amount of problems with delayed payment. And again, Ron and I would be glad to talk to you about some of these programs. We have some vendors that can help with that credit card tokenization. And then lastly, as you'll see in a moment, we are integrated with over 40 of the most popular dental billing softwares. And what that means to you in your office is we add a feature at no cost. Your office biller or office manager can see the names of each patient going over, let's say 30 days past due, and with the ease of a check mark, move that information over to us to start helping you resolve a slow payment issue. And we call this program Smart Collect, and we'll show you that in just a moment. Ron, I'm going to let you share a few ideas that the front office or the billing people can use to help resolve slow pay account situations.
Sure, Mike, thanks. And just by way of introduction, Mike and I are both long-term Michigan residents. Our office is in Troy, Michigan, and has been since '92. Before that, we were down in the Rensen and have been working with dental offices since the '80s. My personal experience with TSI was I was collecting past due accounts for the hotel in the Rensen, and I know how frustrating it is when people are evading you, not taking your calls, and just being non-responsive. And when I saw this program, it was within a matter of a week or almost just under 2 weeks that I had left the hotel in the Rensen and started TSI's office way back in, believe it or not, the 1980s. So I've been here longer than I care to admit. But your staff, especially people that are trying to put that friendly smile on and have a positive attitude when it comes to dealing with past due accounts and people that get to 90 days, it can be very frustrating and can wear on your staff. And what we're providing is automation and tools that can help your staff be more productive. We know from experience, we have close to 1,000 collectors, and we measure their get-through rate on the phone every day, twice a day, believe it or not, morning and afternoons. And the get-through rate is about 8 to 10%. For every call a collector makes, they're only talking to, basically 1 out of 10 or less in terms of the right party contact that can actually deal with the bill and or make a payment. So it's—
Hey, Ron, I'm just going to jump in here, but this statistic was actually how often when a dental office is trying to call a patient, how often do they actually even speak to the patient?
Yeah, and it's not uncommon for our folks to have slightly less, but our collectors are calling with unknown caller and no caller ID. They see your caller ID typically, And if they want to avoid you, they know how to do that. They just don't answer the call. And like Mike said, it's not uncommon for 1 out of 10 to be successful. So once you do get someone on the phone, obviously attitude and being empathetic and understanding has a big part in terms of taking them from a past due account to a current account. And, just having your staff, again, try to, and we'll give you some of these tips in a little bit, engage and then re-engage about, what needs to be accomplished on that call. And in terms of how we're going to take the payment, and if it's not paid in full, how much are you short, and can we get the rest before the end of the month? So go ahead and turn that slide, Mike. So a lot of our collectors, and we train some clients to use this technique, and it's called bridging, where you want to retain control of the call, and who's ever asking the questions is the one that's retaining control of the call. So when you're asking a question about, acknowledging whatever situation they throw at you, but then asking the question, well, you do understand that, we have a business need. We served you over 3 months ago and your needs, and now we need to figure out how you're going to settle this balance. But acknowledging that need, establishing some rapport, and keeping a positive attitude is crucial before you get the pushback from a patient on they can't pay, or they won't pay, or they don't have enough money to pay. Go ahead, Mike. So, for example, what's most important is we get you into a payment plan that keeps you out of collections without jeopardizing the needs of your family. And again, a lot of practices might threaten collections, but eventually never place accounts for collections, because nobody wants to do that. But out of necessity, and sometimes it's, a last resort, accounts will go over to collections, and they may be 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 24 months, or even 3 years old. The proper time to deal with a past due account is to nip it in the bud as it's creeping into that 3rd and 4th month of delinquency, and getting the point across that, we understand that you have other bills to pay, but the issue for our office is we need to be paid. And it's not so much an insurance issue, whether they're haggling with their insurance or a denied claim or what. Get them to confirm that the services were performed. If your insurance carrier is not covering it, then that's your responsibility. And we are willing to work with you during whatever type of difficult time they're throwing at you. So it is important to remember that you're willing to work with them, and that might involve, 2 or 3 payments in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And asking, instead of how much can you pay, which gives them control of the answer, ask them how much are you short. If someone owes you $350, saying how much are you short is a lot better than asking how much can you pay, because then you're giving them control over how much they're going to start paying you. And it may only be, $25 or $50 when you've got a $350 balance that you're trying to recover. So try to remember that as a office staff tip. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't pay the full amount. How much are you short? So maybe they owe you $350, but they can pay you $200 today, and then the balance in 2 weeks when they get their next paycheck. And instead of setting up a monthly payment plan, you want to set up a payment plan that coincides with their pay periods. And most people get paid every 2 weeks. So can we expect the remainder then within 2 weeks, so I can get this off the books and let the doctor know that you're all caught up? If need be, if you ever do set up a payment plan, you still want to take the first payment now. If it's a 3-payment installment, can we get that first third now, and then in 2 and 4 weeks take care of the rest of the balance? And again, as Mike has on here, take good notes. It's important to know what you said and what they said to your requests. That way you can always refer to those literally agreements. They were verbal agreements, but sometimes it might even warrant sending out a letter after you got that first payment. and that we are expecting the second and third payment in the next 2 and 4 weeks. So here's a situation for asking for payment. And hello, this is Betty Smith, and then this is Ron calling from ABC Dental. I'm calling regarding your office visit on January 15th. We're showing an outstanding balance from your visit. Dr. Steve asked me to call you to bring your account up to date, and we want to confirm also your next visit. The balance owed is $225, and payment is expected. And then will you be using a credit card or debit card to pay this today? And again, silence, let them answer that. If they say they can't pay it 100% today, and then again, how much are you short? So can you pay the 150, or can you pay that 200, and then we'll bill you for the balance in the next couple of weeks? And then asking for credit card or check, if you're letting them off, if you're offering them a check solution, obviously that check in the mail is a pretty probably one of the most spoken little white lies in the country. Yeah, the check is in the mail, or I'll put that in the mail on Monday or on Tuesday. So if they are sending a check, okay, I'll let Dr. Steve know we can expect your check by the 18th. And then once we receive the balance that you'll still owe is, and can we agree to settle that by the end of the month? And again, these are just ways to convey the importance of getting that settled within that first 30 days. Again, asking and being empathetic about a patient's situation when they explain, maybe they're in between jobs, maybe someone in the family's lost their job, or they're laid off, or they're on a furlough, whatever it might be. Show empathy, but again, come back to reminding them of the business obligation, that you're running a business and you have to figure out a way to get the balance resolved, and then getting those commitments for payment. One of the other things that Mike mentioned earlier, and I just want to emphasize this, when you on your office policy statement or financial policy statement ask them for their opting in of text messaging and or email, you want to ask it for your office and for your subcontractors, dental labs, billing companies, and other agents. That allows us to communicate with them in writing. And due to a recent change in the federal regulations, our first notice asks them, has a spot on there for them to give us their to give us their email address and or mobile cell phone number, so that we can text them or email them when following up about the debt. And if they opt in on that, we're obviously going to communicate not only on the phone, but via text and email about past due balances when we're having a hard time getting them on the phone. So that information is very important. And you want to also include your dental labs and or your subcontractors, your billers, and our other agents, and just refer to us as your other agent.
Yeah. Or Ron, the other terminology might just be you may be contacted by a third-party vendor, and that would probably cover the,
or
the
other
majority
third-party
of those.
vendors for sure.
Yeah.
And again, we talked about arranging for bi-monthly payments when possible, and follow up with that written letter telling them when you expect that final payment or the next payment. Hello again, this is Betty Smith, patient. The balance owed from the 15th is $225, payments expected. So I'll let Dr. Steve know you'll take care of this evening. You can use our online pay, so you can make that payment today. You'll see Easy Pay link on and just follow the steps. So I'll let Dr. Steve know you'll be making the payment online tonight. And one of our poll questions that Shauna was going to post out there was, are you accepting payments online currently, where a patient can just log into your website and the patient can pay at their own convenience at 9 or 10 o'clock at night? If you get a chance, if you can, give us a yes or no on that. It's either you do it now currently, or you don't do it now right now. And we'd like to know, last time when we did our annual session live seminar, I think less than 25% of the offices were using the ability to let patients pay online. So we'd like to see what that number is.
When Ron and I
Currently.
have conversations with many of the offices, we ask them, does your billing person uh, direct a unpaid account to go to your online payment portal? And in many cases, it's a very unsure answer. There are a lot of people who kind of like to pay anonymously, and it really should be, again, part of the training with your billing people that they know how to direct them to that online payment portal.
Okay, thanks, Shauna, for putting that up. Mike, you want to go? Well, here's the other one. Or those are the results. Right now, no, 5 out of 5, and 0 out of 5, yes. So not uncommon, and that's something that's the innovation that is expected by most people, most millennials, most Gen Xers are going to want to pay their bills online. So that's something that you might want to look into sooner rather than later.
Most webmasters, whoever runs your website for you, or even MDA can probably direct you to a website management company that they all know how to set up those online payment portals for you, and give you the directions even to coordinate that through your bank.
Yeah, or your credit card processor. They may
Sure.
have a link that they can provide you. Click on the next slide, Mike. So we've known this for decades that, unlike wine, accounts depreciate and are less favorable to you over time. And they typically depreciate at about 1 to 1.5% a day. So when accounts get 60 to 90 days, they can literally reduce the collectability of that paper by 60 to 90%. Once somebody gets over 90 or 120 days, if they still owe you that 300 or 200 from the previous visit, that just increases the chances they're going to be a no-show on their 6-month checkup. And again, you want to nip it in the bud and get after it when it's 2 to 3 months past due, as opposed to when it's 120 or 180 days outstanding, because that just dramatically increases the chance they might not show up on that next appointment. And obviously, all of a sudden they come up with reasons now that they're 4 or 5 months past due on complaints or why they might not want to pay. And again, further treatments will stop. So it's additional effort for your staff, and your payments are at risk. So allowing these delays kind of sends the wrong message to the patient, and you want to be more proactive in those early stages of delinquency. Mike, is always talking about the consistent office process and making sure that your staff is trained on being proactive and being empathetic, but also having that positive attitude. We know that the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act applies to us. We're a collection agency, but there are also segments of that act that apply to the creditors, as opposed, for example, you can't be deceptive about what you're doing. You can't publicize that someone is past due. There's certain things that you can and shouldn't do, like sharing with an employer. You're calling somebody at work, and if you let that employer know you're calling regarding a past due account, that's taboo. You can't do that. That is, personal information that the FDCPA does not allow. So it's important that by nipping it in the bud, we say 60 to 90 days. Again, we have this program called Accelerator we'll talk about in a minute, but it's designed to be an extension of your office where we can communicate every 7 or 10 days in your name with a soft letter, a soft call, a second soft letter, a second soft call, and it uses your caller ID. And that's something we rolled out after the financial crisis of 2008 and 9. And it's over 60% of our clients are using Accelerator now, as opposed to just third-party agency collections. So Mike, I'll let you go over these 6 points if you like.
Thank you, Ron. And again, I think you're getting a nice overview of what we do and how we like to be useful to you and your office staff. Ron and I are always available to, let's say, answer that tough question. Some of the things we might hear is, the parents are separated and one says the other has responsibility, or back to that guarantor question. And we really want to assure you, once we get started helping your office, use Ron and I as a resource. There's also been some new rules and regulations that have come out. And the one thing we can assure you, and the MDA will also let you know this, we are by far the most compliant debt collection agency in the country. I mean, we actually even do work for the government here in Michigan. Trinity Health and Beaumont Hospital use our services. And that is all because we understand all the rules and regulations. And what that means to you, to your office, is nothing we're going to do is going to put you into, a difficult situation or a legal situation. And we can say that with 100% confidence. Um, but more importantly, our services, as you're going to see, are going to allow you to deal quickly with a slow paying account before it becomes an issue where we have to use one of our licensed debt collectors. I mentioned earlier the integration, and I'm sure if you look at the screen, you're probably going to recognize one of the programs on here. This is just a snapshot, though, of the over 30 dental billing softwares that we have integration with. And again, what that means to you and your billing staff is they will just look at a screen that will show them who is a past due account. And so once a week or twice a month, they can simply look at these screens. They'll see the name, the age of the issue, how much they owe, when's the last time you saw them. And if they see somebody on the screen who they agree is becoming a bit of, let's just call it a slow payer, they can simply choose the name and, using one of our easy processes, choose to move that information over to us, where then we will begin the process of helping contact them using reminders, as Ron said, through our accelerator program, or possibly having one of our debt collectors get involved. This is a screenshot of what we have in Open Dental. And I will assure you, if you're an Open Dental user, your billing staff, once we turn on this screen, will ask you, where has this been? Because this makes it a 3-minute process every Friday to just look at this, see who's going over 90 or 120 days, and just click and choose and use some of our programs to help ensure prompt payment. Here's another example of the format we provide in MacPractice. And again, just as simple. You're choosing the patient name, you're deciding which program you want them to go to. And then this is our in-house program called Smart Collect. And again, you'll see your office is controlling everything. There's nothing automated here. But what it does is it brings up the name of the patient who's just slightly past due. And as Ron encouraged, the real key in this tough economy is you've got to get in front of a patient early as soon as they hit, let's say, that 60-day mark. Or as we like to say, you've asked twice. When Ron and I speak at annual sessions, we're always asking the audience, how many statements do you really think should need to be sent, right? Show of hands, how many think you should send 2? And we get a pretty good response. Then we say, how many think you should send 3? Well, the hands start to go down. How many believe you need to send 4? And usually the whole room is, nodding like, we get it. Well, that's what we try to do with our accelerator program, is we want to reduce your office statement effort to 1 or maybe 2. And after they hit that, let's call it 60-day, or, they've been asked twice to pay, you can move them over to Accelerator. And in our Accelerator program, we'll show you a little more on that. We send out a series of written reminders with a detachable payment slip that direct the patient to still call or pay your office. And Ron or I would be glad to discuss more about that process and how the advantages of using Accelerator. We know the MDA services team will tell you we have over a 70% success rate with the practices that use Accelerator at getting a patient who's now dropped into that 60-day bucket to realize that it's time to pay the bill. Very effective. The one item we do like to point out is with many of your billing programs, no matter what you use, Dentrex, Open Dental, EagleSoft, there are service codes or billing types on there. And many times when we're looking at your billing program with your billing staff, we find they aren't using these service codes or billing types. And it's where you can go in and customize whether it's a friend of the office, maybe that they're on a treatment plan, Medicare or Medicaid. And what this does, especially if you've hired a new person to come in, now they have this history. And it's one of the aspects of the power of your billing program that consistently gets neglected. And the reason why we promote this is that when you turn on some of our programs, these service codes will come up and they'll help speed up the evaluation of, is this a true slow payer? Or maybe this is a friend of the office. Maybe it's your brother-in-law, and that's the reason why there's not a bill going out to them. The other part of our programs, which you'll like, is they update every day. So when your staff checks the program, as you see at the bottom of the screen here, it shows them clearly that there's a payment been made. And one of the steps that we take that, again, I know the MDA will encourage is we actually send out a nice thank you letter when a patient reports a payment or resolves an issue with us. And we do that free and at no cost. I'll be honest, we have many times when we're talking to your office doctor or office manager that we get the comment that we actually don't even send out a thank you letter and you're the debt collection company. So it's a feature we provide that's very well received. So the three options, and Ron talked about the first one here, is called Accelerator. And in Accelerator, we're mailing out a series of reminder invoices that still look like they come from your office. There's no mention of TSI or TransWorld. We mail one out every week if necessary, but as we've been promoting, they direct the patient to send all the money or call your office. And the reason why this is so popular right now is we know with the pressure on everybody's office to follow up and stay in touch with let's call it just a slow payer is difficult. And as I jokingly said earlier, we know that with these patients, they're making a decision every Friday payday, whether they go out for pizza or they buy something on Amazon Prime or they pay you. And that's what makes it so important that you're sending out a reminder with consistency. Here's an example of the reminder we send out. And I want to let you know, and this is why we get that 70% success rate. This comes across as looking different than your current statement process, a little more serious, but it also gives a 10-day due date. And we know most statement formats do not include anything. Matter of fact, we usually show an example of most statement formats where they have those 30, 60, 90, 120 boxes at the bottom. And kiddingly, folks, everybody who looks at those 4 boxes realizes they've got 4 months to pay. And if you don't think they look at it that way, well, that's what you're probably experiencing. Or the only comment on a lot of statements is pay upon receipt, which, once they set it in a pile, that doesn't have any more bearing. But with all of our written reminders that we send out on your behalf, it gives them a due date, which helps promote that it's time to pay your office. And as you can see here, it includes a detachable payment slip where 100% of the money is coming to you. The only phone number they're seeing on this document is your office. We don't want to get involved here. We just want to automate the process of following up as soon as you determine somebody, again, let's say they've received 2 statements and it hasn't been paid. The other item, and why we promoted it earlier, and Ron talked about it, is if you have an online payment portal on your office website, we're going to include that information on all of our documents that we send out. And again, it gives that unpaid account or slow payer who might be a little embarrassed, that opportunity to pay anonymously on your website.
Mike,
But
let
I
me
hope,
just, if I can, let me just interject. So
yeah, sure,
what
Ron.
what made TSI the largest collection agency in the country, partially, is our ability to do these types of efforts automated, whether it's through the mail or automated calls, for a low fixed fee, typically about $10 to $15 per account, depending on volume. If you have high volume, 10, 20 a month, you're looking at, $10, $11 an account. If you're just one or two accounts a month, because you're an MDA member, our services are discounted. Normally it'd be $15 to $16 an account. And with your discount, it's 13 and a quarter, pretty much is where we start most practices off. So if we collect a $200 or $300 balance for $13, that's a home run. That's letting you keep over 90 to 95% of the money coming in. And what we're trying to do is help your office automate this so that it's, again, a soft letter, a soft call, 7 or 10 days later, a second soft letter, which is very similar to the first one, and then a second automated call prompting them to call you to pay. And then finally, a final reminder notice. And that final reminder notice also lets them know you're now significantly past due. To avoid placement with our collection agency, please remit your payment in the envelope enclosed or make arrangements with our office. And if you give people a deadline, a 10-day deadline, you will see a lot of lift just on that final reminder notice before anybody goes to collection or third-party agency. But what we haven't even talked about yet is the Profit Recovery series. And Profit Recovery is our claim to fame. We've been providing this automated series literally since 1970, before there were PCs. And we automated this agency function so that computerized system to automate these notices from our agency to your patient, prompting them to pay you directly or contact your office, allows you to maintain the relationship with the patient and allows you to be the first one aware that the money's been paid. You're keeping 100% of these dollars, even through our series of 5 agency demands. And again, our fee is in that, $12 to $14 per account, regardless of how much the is owed and regardless of how old the balance is. Now, if accounts are already over a year old, you might want to skip the automated letter series and go right into our call center collections, where they're going to be contacting the patient every week over the phone. And of course, we're going to send the obligatory first letter with all their rights, etc. But Profit Recovery is our signature program. Whether you decide never to use Accelerator or not, it's the Profit Recovery program that makes us unique in the collection world, where, again, for that $12, $13 an account, we're going to work it for about 75 or 80 days. Most of the money that gets collected will get collected during that first 5 contacts from our agency through the mail. And you're keeping 100% of those dollars. And on average, you're going to net over 90 cents on the dollars collected. So if you're using a current agency right now, I'm pretty sure that you're not keeping 90 cents on the dollar. And you may want to look into this automated series of agency contacts before any collector ever picks up a phone.
So just to kind of put this together in pieces, Accelerator is your program to take the burden off your billing staff. Using Accelerator, for example, as we like to say, around 60 days, where you've asked twice and there hasn't been a response, because this series of 5 reminders will look like it comes from you. Now, if you have an older situation or they ignore Accelerator, then they'll move on to this document, which comes from us now, shows that we're involved. But again, in the most beneficial part of our process, you're still getting 100% of the money. So it's just adding a new level of, let's just call it importance, that now there is the nation's largest debt collection company putting a document on your kitchen table, but you have that fantastic option of just calling or paying the dentist office right now. And when your office gets the payment, again, you're reporting it to us by just using your billing software, Open Dental, Dentrex, whatever. Your staff just puts it in the ledger like they do every day, and it automatically alerts us. And that's when we send out that nice thank you letter. And then the third step is, as Ron was indicating, we have over 350 licensed debt collectors. We're licensed in all 50 states. So if we do run into a situation or you have older issues, even going back 3-4 years that you'd like us to try to resolve, you can move those over to us, and that's done at no cost. And our licensed debt collectors will then use some of our technology to try to locate them, either using social or driver's license number. They'll reach out and have a very professional conversation with them. And I think you'll be pleased on our success rate, even on some of these older issues. We also provide a very discounted debt collection fee rate for MDA members, and will be as competitive as any other agency you might currently be using or considering talking to. The one item, and we show this slide at a lot of the annual sessions, is, what does the true effort look like? And I know this slide, it's a little overwhelming, but we want to show you that, and we've talked about a little bit now. With profit recovery, there are significant contacts made continuously for the first 40 or 50 days. And again, this is something your office would have a hard time keeping up. If you move it to one of our collectors, within 3 days, that patient, who's now, let's call them what they are, they're a debtor, is getting a letter indicating they've been assigned to TransWorld. Usually within another day or two, they're getting a phone call. And then it's not unusual in the first 30 days, they're hearing from us 2 to 3 times a week because of the number of collectors we have. If they become a situation where they're not answering the phone, as Ron said, or responding, we continue to work that for many times up to years. And we keep them on a consistent process of every 90 days, contacting them, still indicating this issue has not gone away. And then if it is appropriate, and usually that's based off dollar volume, we will also provide legal services. We'll do a pre-litigation check and use one of our nationwide network of law firms to move forward with suit. This is something specifically, doctor or office manager, that Ron and I can talk to you about how that process works. Certainly, I think everybody understands the courts are very clogged up right now. We don't want to oversell litigation. What we do want to oversell is dealing with these issues early is the way to get you paid and help your office retain patients, as Ron
Mike,
had said earlier.
let me just interject there that if at the time you start working with us, you say, we don't want anybody to go to court. We don't, even because TSI offers to pay the court costs and attorney fees up front, the balance needs to warrant that. And so a balance of, could be $1,500, even $2,000 before we're going to pull the trigger on a lawsuit. But that phase 3 is just attorney offices collecting even smaller balances, 200, 500, 700. If you say we don't want to use phase 3 or we don't want to use legal, we can set that up in our system so that we're not going to even come to you with, hey, we've got somebody we're gonna litigate. You can turn that off at the outset, and we can set it up so that we're not going to engage attorneys. Just I know a lot of practices don't want to go down that path, so I'm bringing that up. The last thing I'll say, and I always recommend my clients use our profit recovery on a 14-day cycle, because most people get paid every 2 weeks, and that puts us on a path of 5 pay periods. If we're sending out notices every 2 weeks and they're getting paid every 2 weeks, and they don't resolve it through these 5 agency demands, the collectability of that paper is diminished dramatically at the end of the 5th cycle. But for the most part, just the letters alone through profit recovery are resolving 2 to 3 times what most collection agencies deliver. And it's part of it's what we say, how we say it, but most importantly, who's saying it. We're a third-party, largest debt collection agency in the country, and people pay attention all of a sudden now when an agency gets involved they're going to run to you so they don't have to talk to us and make arrangements to pay. So, or just send the check. So that's the key to this process, is early intervention of a third-party debt collector. And then when they do pay in profit recovery, we send a thank you letter acknowledging your services are available in the future should a future need arise, and thanking them for their cooperation. So it's a very well-designed third-party intervention program as far as collections goes. And we'd be love to, show you our demo, our client portal, and actual results from groups of other dental offices, so you can see that, actual numbers kind of prove the case that we can collect money for 10 cents on the dollar when using these automated systems. Again, what are your options? Keep sending statements, 3, 4, whatever number you feel is appropriate. You can write it off, take it off the books, and most CPAs will tell you if you don't have your money in 90 or 120 days, it's not real AR anymore. You should probably take it off your books after 120 days, or use a third-party option, and one that allows you to retain control both over the dialogue with the patient as well as the direction of the cash flow. The money's going directly to you, not to the agency, so that you don't have to wait another 30 days for your 50 or 60%. And what we're saying is use a third party that allows you to keep that money sooner and get better results. The sooner you start using a third party, the higher results you're going to see.
Yeah. Ron, you and I have talked about this, and doctor's office manager, I think you'll be surprised how many of your billers, they still use the term writing it off, and they'll ask us, well, can we take it as a write-off? And I think they imagine that you're going to get some kind of financial break off this unpaid money. And we all know, unless you're selling some kind of an appliance or, creating something for your patient where there's a, tangible cost, there is no price break when it's just an office visit for a cleaning. And we try to import that this isn't a write-off. There's no tax benefit here. All you're doing when you don't take care of this is you're just taking it off the books. And that basically means you just don't want to see that patient's name anymore. And I think everybody knows that just means you're not getting the money. So it isn't like some traditional businesses where there's actually sometimes a bit of an advantage of unpaid accounts. In your practice, if you're just taking the balance off the book, that money's gone. And
Mike,
that's
next slide, please. We
yeah.
still got 8 slides to go in addition, and we want to leave a little time for Q&A. You can start putting your questions, if you have any, in the chat box or the Q&A section there. But again, reviewing what's important, having a defined credit collection and past due account policy and process, evaluating and how to improve your internal practices, utilizing billing software that hopefully interfaces with TSI or your other agency. If you have other agencies, most of them don't have anywhere near the number of interfaces we do. I'm also, leveraging progressive ideas and tools to manage these accounts more effectively in your name, and that's where Accelerator can fill a void. And then after you've done all you can, work successfully and partner with a debt collection agency that is going to be around 10 years from now. There was a big shakeout in the industry way back in 2008 and 9. A lot of agencies didn't make it through that. And the opposite of that is we've grown to be the largest in the country. So we're pretty proud about that. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so these are some summaries. I think Ron and I have covered a lot of these. I think you're probably understanding that there are some new options out there that we can offer that maybe you haven't been using. And as we like to say, and the MDA will support this, we are getting phenomenal results by using that first party polite reminder program called Accelerator, by using that third party written reminder program called Profit Recovery. And then our collectors are some of the best in the industry with that confidence that they're going to follow every rule and regulation to make sure that you have no concern about using our services. If there were a couple takeaways from today, again, we would encourage you to get that website payment options set up because when we send out any of our written documents, we are putting that on there, and it really makes a difference. We hear continuously how often the office says that, they paid online, and we just want to make sure you guys were aware of it. And the last one, which, as part of our advice, is make sure your staff is directing somebody who they reach out to as a delayed payment, how easy it is to go to your online payment portal, and just clean that up today. I would say again, as a takeaway, if you haven't pulled out that policy manual, get it out at your next staff meeting. Take a look at it. Reinforce to your billing team that we're in a tough economy, folks. We have to be a little more straightforward with expectation of payment. And then obviously we're glad to help. And one of the things that Ron and I also provide is a script when we move forward with your office to help your office staff share ideas or give them some direction of how to respond when they're talking to a slow payer or a problem payer. And again, we're glad to help them by sharing some of the advice we've given you today. If you have any questions, the chat box is open. We're glad to answer them. And also, if you'd like to reach either of us, here's our direct numbers. We're easy to reach. These are our cell phones. We're glad to continue a conversation. Traditionally, how we like to meet with you, if you'd like to learn more, is we do an online meeting using a format such as GoToMeeting, where we'll show you online the different documents we shared today. We'll show you exactly how we integrate into your billing program, and we're glad to answer any questions or discuss the various pricing options based off your current situation and the discounts we provide through MDA services. Ron, anything to add before we wrap up today or answer some questions?
Just that I think Shauna said she would be sending over a survey, an AR survey. This is something that we normally would hand out in our live seminars at the annual session, that you can give us a little bit more information of what your current situation is, what you're looking for. Also, if you thought this was beneficial and time well spent during today. So thank you for participating and joining us. And again, feel free to reach out to Mike or I. We actually share the same administrative assistant. So if you can't get a hold of one of us, you can always get a hold of her. Her name's Jacqueline, and we'll be happy to provide her direct line as well. Other than that, Shauna, thank you so much for helping us orchestrate this and inviting the members to attend.